Looks like we're live. Hello everyone and welcome to yet another recreational programming session with Amista Azuzin. Let's make a little bit of an announcement and officially start the stream as usual. So a red circle live on Twitch. And what are we doing today on Twitch at television website? Today we are doing memcached coding interview question. Right, that's right. So I'm gonna give the link to twitch.tv/coding and I'm gonna ping everyone who's interested in being pinged. And there we go, the stream has officially started. So today I would like to take a look at the blog post that I saw some time ago, right? So interestingly enough, right, so it dated as 2022, but I feel like I remember seeing this post way before that. I don't know what's up with the date. Maybe I'm remembering that incorrectly. I'm gonna put this blog post in here in the chat for people who's chatting right now on Twitch. I can't really copy paste it. There we go. And for people who's potentially watching on YouTube, it's gonna be in the description, right? So the blog post is called "The Best Engineering Interview Question I've Ever Gotten." Right, excuse me. The idea is that you take the memcached source code, right? You take the memcached source code and you add a new operation to it. Like you literally modify the source code of memcached and you add a new operation. So for those who doesn't know, memcached is an in-memory database. It's like or in-memory key value storage, right? So this is basically what the blog post says. It's an in-memory key value storage. Also the first thing the blog post does, it actually goes through the process of setting up memcached and shows the basic usage of this in-memory key value storage. So I suppose this is something that we want to do as well, right? This is something that we want to do as well. So we're gonna download the same version as used in the blog post. I think it's from 2013, right? So because obviously the source code has moved on since then, so it's not the same anymore. So for the authenticity, it makes sense to probably use the same version as in here. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm gonna go ahead and just create maybe a folder, memcached challenge, right? So this is going to be the folder, and I'm going to straight up download this entire thing. We can use curl, right? So why not? Let's just go ahead and use curl. We're downloading, so we already downloaded this entire thing. Okay, so it's pretty small. So let's unpack this entire stuff, and there we go. We've got the classical auto tools project, right? So that we can build with just configure and make, I suppose, right? So one of the things we can do, we can take a look at the configure help. Right, so configure help. What kind of stuff do we have in here? We don't even have that many things, right? So it's a very small project. It's a relatively small project. So let's do maybe clock and see how big it is. Right, so it doesn't even have 100,000 lines of code. It's 27,000 lines of code. And the amount of C is actually not even 10. It's a very small project, actually. Honestly, I've had personal projects that are bigger than that. I think I had personal project of 10,000 lines of code of C. So it's smaller than that, actually. Surprisingly, it's smaller than that. Anyway, so sure. So the first thing we have to do, we have to configure the entire thing. Right, let's see. It's probably not going to take too much time. I really like how Emacs automatically detects that we're running the config, and it just highlights all of these things. Or maybe it's not Emacs. Maybe it's it's using Emacs theme colors. So that means it's not from the output, right? It's something with Emacs. And the next thing we want to do, we want to build this entire thing. I'm going to give it 3 threads, and there we go. Let's wait until it builds itself. So it seems to be built, and we should have a memcached executable. There we go. So here is the executable, elf64, blah blah blah. So do we have any dependencies? It doesn't even have any dependencies. It doesn't really have that many dependencies. It's a very simple application, to be fair. In all fairness, memcached is a very simple application. We can try to run it. memcached, right? So I'm going to just run it. And is it even doing anything? I'm not even quite sure. So what you can do, you can actually connect to this memcached server via telnet. It's just listening to a TCP connections. Right, it's that simple. So, and let's actually open the separate terminal, right? So I'm gonna just do something like this and go to the telnet. And there you go. So you basically connected to this entire thing. It doesn't even log anything, right? If we put this thing side by side, I don't really see any logging. I don't see any movement, right? So, and one of the things you can do, you can set different values. So set full name 0, 3, something, something. So doing something like this tells memcached to remember an association between the string full name and the 10-byte value John Smith, so the period, right? So that's very interesting. So that's kind of cool. Set full name, and it will remember for, I suppose, how long the other numbers on that line are flags. The value 0 is to remember alongside the byte stream value. That is expire time, this one measured in seconds, after which memcached will forget the association. Anyway, after you type these 2 lines, memcached will respond stored. All right, so we can just put something like this here, right? So press enter and nothing really happened. Which is, because I'm supposed to actually supply the thing, right? So I suppose to, like, I never used memcached, by the way, right? I'm not a web developer. I know that this is a thing, right, that you use in web development. So as you can see, it said client error, bad data chunk, and that kind of proves that I'm really bad at this kind of thing because I probably put a new line in here. So I'm not supposed to put a new line in here. So let's actually do something like this. Right, so this is a John Smith. And there we go, it stored that thing. And I suppose now I can get the full name out of this thing, and it's gonna exist for this amount of seconds, which is very interesting, right? So if you basically divide this by that, so it exists for an hour, right? So essentially 60 minutes, right? So this is how many minutes you have, and this is how many hours you have. So it's gonna remember that for 1 hour, if I remember how the time works, right? If I remember how it works. So why would you even need this kind of database, right? So it's kind of bizarre, isn't it? Like, why would you need something like that? So the last time I saw memcached used, it was used in the context of like these classical PHP scripts, right? So the thing about PHP is that the old school PHP way of development is that you have a script that fires and forgets. And it doesn't run for very long. So basically, on each request, a PHP script is run, right? It processes your request and it just dies out. So you cannot store the state of the web application in PHP script in its variables. You physically cannot store its state there. So in the way people solve that, they store the state of a PHP application in a database, some sort of a database like Postgres or MySQL, quite often MySQL, right? So in PHP community, I think MySQL is more popular than Postgres. Right. But what if you have a very simple application, right? Very simple application that for which something like Postgres or MySQL is going to be complete overkill? Well, you can use memcached. Right, so and it's kind of a bizarre way, kind of a bizarre use case for such databases. And on top of that, you can use it for caching things, right? So you can pre-compute some stuff and you can cache it and stuff like that. I suppose maybe, I'm not even sure. Can you have several memcached instances on different machines that synchronize between each other? Can you do something like that? I'm not a web developer, like I know nothing about this kind of stuff, but if you can do this kind of stuff, I can see that being very useful for web applications, right? So you have some sort of a computation that is done on one machine, and you can basically say, okay, share that computation among all of these like instances that use memcached, right? I can see that. So, but I mean, it doesn't have to be like several instances. You can just keep memcached on a separate machine, and you can have several servers that run PHP scripts and use the same memcached or something like that. I can see that being useful, right? I can see that being useful for these toy scripting languages. You know what I'm talking about? So we've got some Get some subs. So just a second. Right, so Marcio Neta, thank you so much for tier 1 subscription with the message. I love this kind of streams. Going through a relatively small production code base is one of the best way to really learn how technology works, in my experience. Yes, it is. And what's interesting about this specific question, this specific sort of engineering challenge, is that it is as close to your real job as it can possibly be. Right. Unlike lead code coding interviews and stuff like that, because this is literally what you will have to do on your day-to-day job. You would have to take an unfamiliar source code and you'd have to extend it. Right. Nobody's going to explain you how this source code works. It's up to you to learn it and find the points of extensions and extend that source code. And it's just so good. It's such a good question. Unfortunately, it's really hard to find these sort of isolated instances of source codes or tasks for source codes that really demonstrate software engineering skills of person, right? So maybe companies should start like collecting like a database of such tasks or something like that. I suppose in software development in the industry, there is a notion of a good first task or good first issue, right? So even GitHub automatically creates a tag for that, right? So we can even go ahead and just open something like knock, right? So, and if you take a look at the tags that you have in the issues, one of them is going to be, they're called labels in case of GitHub, right? So good first issue. And yeah, so this is basically might be good tasks to ask on coding interviews, right? So basically maintain like a pool of good first issues, and if somebody comes to an interview, just throw them at them and see how they at least find the place where they need to modify the code. They probably don't even have to implement or actually modify the code, but how quickly they can figure out how to do that, right? Because that's what demonstrates the software engineering abilities, in my opinion, right? Asking lead code coding interview questions is akin to asking a lawyer, imagine you interviewing a lawyer, to play a round of chess, right? Imagine you're interviewing a lawyer, you want to hire a lawyer, and what you do, you ask them, let's play a round of chess. Well, I mean, it's not the bad idea. It may even evaluate something about your lawyer, about their ability to defend you in court. But ultimately, this is not what they're going to be doing. You know what I'm talking about, right? So the coding, these competitive programming tasks, they're basically chess for programmers, right? It's an interesting mental exercise, yes. It may even evaluate something about the programmer, but ultimately, this is not what we're doing. Right? It's just like, yeah, I don't know. And I'm not saying that we should or should not do these competitive programming coding interview questions, right? What I'm saying is that it's ultimately not about that, right? And we have to be aware of that at least. All right, we have to be aware of that at least. One style of interview is also to ask about things the person already did to see how well they understand what they programmed and how good they are at explaining, because I did a mock interview on that type once. Yeah, so I feel like generally we want to evaluate programmers as the industry usually evaluates like artists, right? So essentially when an artist wants to get a job, what they do, they show their portfolio. We do not ask artists about some obscure features of Photoshop. Imagine if really, like, for example, game dev industry, when they hire artists, they would ask, find me that brush in Photoshop version 6 point something, something, something. You wouldn't hire an artist like that. Why the fuck do we do something like that for programmers? Like, what? Excuse me? Like, no, show me your portfolio. Show me what you've done. Right, so that's how we should evaluate software developers. I mean, that's how we evaluate like quite a lot of different professions. Like, why did we stuck in such a weird way of evaluating programmers? I do not quite understand. It's so weird to me, honestly. Right. And especially, it's kind of weird to evaluate artists by some obscure features of Photoshop because different artists may use different tools, Right, so, and it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, what you have to produce is basically a matrix of pixels. That's what we expect from an artist. Just give me a matrix of pixels, of colors. Right. So, and the same for the programmer, right? It's just at the end of the day, you have to produce a sequence of instructions. Is that what we do? I'm not even sure. What's the end product of programmer? I don't know. So anyway. I don't really know. So we got another sub from Lead Geek, tier 1 subscription without any message. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Alrighty. So let's continue. Let's continue. So what else do we have? Right. So we can get the value and stuff like that. One of the things that we can do, right, we can associate numbers, right? So we can associate numbers. For instance, I can create a value age, right? And so I can put something like 68 in here, and it created a variable age, which is, I suppose, is an integer, right? So it is an integer. And one of the operations you can do with age is to increment it by 1, right? So if you do that, it became 69. So this is one of the things you can do, right? And the reason why you want to have this as a command in memcached is that it's going to perform these things atomically, right? So memcached is supposed to be used in sort of like a shared distributed environments when it has several clients and stuff like that, right? So, and to sort of avoid race conditions, this entire stuff is atomic, right? So yeah, so the idea, so the challenge is implement a new command called mult, which instead of adding a number, right, so as you can see here, it adds 1 to the variable. Instead of adding, it multiplies by that variable. Obviously, if you try to do something like that, it won't work. It will error out because there is no such command. And that's the challenge. That's the challenge, and they give you, how much do they give you? So you have 3 hours, right? So we got 3 hours to implement all of that. We actually have less because I usually stream for 2 hours, so I have to actually do that a little bit faster, right? But the idea is that you need to extend memcached to support a new command, a new operation, and that's the coding interview. So let's go ahead and try to do that, I suppose, right? So sounds interesting, right? Sounds interesting. So interestingly enough, I already done that challenge before, but I think I've done it like a long time ago, right? A really long time ago. And by today, I already forgot how to do that. So you would have to trust me that I actually don't remember how to do that. So so when I discovered this thing a long time ago, and I accidentally just solved this challenge, right? And I felt so bad because I felt like I wasted such a good content, right? So what I had to do, I had to put it on the back burner until I forget how to do that, and do that again, but already live, right? So you would have to trust me that I don't remember how to do that. I did it once, but I already forgot everything. And I do actually forget things because I try a lot of different things all the time. So I don't really have that much cache in my brain to remember everything, right? So because of that, I just like forget things, right? Because of that, I just forget things. All right. So yes. So how can we even do? How do we even fucking approach this problem, right? So you need to add a new command. How the fuck do you do that? That's an interesting question. That's a very interesting question. So essentially, as you can see, memcached is just like a REPL, read, eval, print, repeat, a loop, right? So L is loop. And essentially, how would you even implement something like that, right? So in C, you would probably have some sort of a loop, right? So maybe infinite loop, where you would read a line, read line, and you would probably save that line to some sort of a variable. Maybe you would even split by sort of like spaces and maybe take the first element out of that. So it doesn't really matter how you parse it. So we basically parse it, right? So, and maybe you're going to have this as a command or something. And then you would have some sort of a switch case. You would have cmd equal to get. And in case of the get, you're going to do one thing, right? So something like get implementation. Otherwise, you're gonna have cmd equal set and so on and so forth. And somewhere there, you're gonna have cmd equal to incr, right? So in any case, I think we want to use actually double quotes in here. In any case, at some point, you would have to compare something with a string literal incr. You would have to do that, right? It is not necessarily going to be implemented like that, but no matter how exactly it is implemented, you would have to compare something that holds a pointer to the string to this string literal. So that means there is a very high probability. There is a very high probability that such string literal exists in a source code very close to the place where we dispatch by the commands, and we can extend that place and we can add a new command. You see what I'm talking about? Right. So essentially, exploring the source code is about building a hypothesis and then testing that hypothesis. Right. It's almost like a scientific method. Right. So, and essentially, this is what we can try to do. Right. So we can try to grab Rn, and specifically, let's try to find a string literal incr. And we found something. So we found something interesting. So this is folder T. Right, this is a very interesting folder. It's called T, and if I remember correctly, usually I think in Perl, T stands for tests, right? So basically, here you put tests, and it's Perl, right? So it's literally Perl. So we can see this string literal being used in Perl tests. Okay, so it doesn't really matter. strcmp tokens. It's literally like that. It's freaking literally. So it is implemented exactly as I said. Wait a second. And it's because again, how the fuck else would you even implement that? How else would you implement it? You would implement it as some sort of a loop and a switch case. Okay, so the loop is probably somewhere outside of the process command, right? Somewhere outside of the process command. And then you have this kind of thing. So there we go. We already find the place. But this place is rather interesting. So it doesn't call to a function that is directly associated with incr command. They have so-called process arithmetic command. And that is very interesting. Right, that is very interesting. Again, yeah, sure. You can say that I knew. But again, it was a long time ago. I don't remember any of that stuff. Like, I really don't remember. And this is how I approach any source code base. Trust me. I forgot. I swear. It's almost like I see it for the first time. I swear. Oh. Trust me, bro, this is not scripted. This is not a scripted stream. Mods? Anyway. So it would be kind of nice to be able to jump to this definition. So you know what we can do? We can find all of the files that are H and C and just like put them in an E tag or something like that. So this is one of the things we can do. So let's find something like ch. So here are all of the ch files. There's not that many of them, right? So, and let's just shove them all into E tags, like so. Right, so that should have created a tags file. So that means, so let's do grep one more time. Grep one more time, and we go here. And I should be able to just go inside of this function by providing the tags file. And there we go, I inside of this thing, and I can go back if I want to. So there you go. So I should actually start using tags more, right? Because it's a very useful thing here. So we have a process arithmetic command. To be fair, we can do a very interesting thing. We can already try to extend this entire thing and add some stuff. So we have end tokens. So I suppose this is the amount of tokens that we have. Right, so the amount of tokens, you tokenize this entire thing. You tokenize this entire thing, and if the amount of tokens is 4 and 5, and the command token specifically equal to incr, we have to do that. But why incr has so many tokens? I do not quite understand. Let me take a look at how you use incr. Yeah, there we go. So there is that, and I see only 3 tokens. I have no idea where the fuck they got 4 and 5 tokens. That is actually kind of bizarre, isn't it? So that is actually kind of bizarre. So we can try to find a command token where it's defined subcommand key token max token. Okay, so that's very interesting. Right. So, but I suppose if we're gonna have multiplication, right, it's gonna act almost exactly as you know, incr, and in that case we can just like go ahead and substitute this entire thing like that, right? So we can just go ahead and substitute it like that. So I think I want to put something behind my camera yet again. I'm really apologize for that. I keep forgetting that Scheiße. I keep forgetting this Scheiße, meine Freunde. Okay, so and in here we can probably print something just to confirm that this is exactly how it works, right? So let's say something like your mom, right? I wonder if it's going to work. I wonder if it's going to work. So we can try to just build this entire thing. Is it building? Is it building? It seems to be building. Right. So, and we can just try to do memcached and basically go to the telnet, and I can do mult age 10, right? So, and that didn't work at all. Though it printed to the standard output, your mom. We already added a new, we literally finished the challenge already, like half of the challenge. This is half of the challenge. So you need to add command that does a certain thing. We added the command. The command is there. It just doesn't do what we asked to do, but it's already there. So this is half of a challenge in 20 minutes. Dab, dab, dab. So do that in an interview. Dude, what do you think a stream is? What do you think a stream is? Right, so when I'm streaming, I'm basically doing a coding interview in front of hundreds of people. Right, in front of hundreds of people, I'm doing coding interview almost every day. Well, I don't really stream every day anymore, but I used to stream a lot every day. And by the way, one of the things I was recommending to people who are preparing for the coding interviews is to try to do a stream. Try to stream, because it basically like, and when you're doing a stream, you want to actually try to learn how to retain attention of people, right? You can retain attention of people by constantly explaining what you're doing, basically exposing your thought process. And what's interesting is that this is exactly what interviewers are expecting from you. Right. So quite often people get scared on the coding interviews because they're afraid that they're not gonna get the correct answer. The interviewer doesn't give a shit about the correct answer. Seriously, they don't give a don't give a fuck if you get the correct answer. What they're interested in is your trail of thoughts. How exactly you approach the solution. And to actually expose that, you need to constantly explain what you're doing. They need to be able to see that. And this is what streaming basically is. That's what streaming is. It's a constant coding interview. That's what it is. Right. So I can say that I'm doing that in a coding interview. So anyway. Okay, good. So we already have half of the challenge finished, right? So we already have a command. It just doesn't do what we were asked to make it to do, right? So let's see how we can do all of that. So let me see. So the process arithmetic command. And what do we do in here? I suppose one of the things we do inside of this entire stuff, we're looking for incr. I feel like we're looking for incr in here, right? So, no, not really. So set non-reply maybe. All right. So bad command line. So there is a key, n key. Increment misses. Okay. So there is some sort of a misses in here. It doesn't really tell us that much. Token length and token. So add delta. Okay, so that's probably what's going on. Add delta. And when we're adding the delta, right, so we do add delta. Okay, so, and within do add delta, what do we do? Okay, so that's basically what's going on in here. So we do add delta. So adds a delta value to an numeric item. See connection requested the operation item to adjust true to increment value, false to decrement it. Okay, that's very interesting. Okay, wait a second. This is actually kind of cool. I see what's going on. We need to, I feel like we need to extend the amount of values you can put in here. I feel like we need to do that. So we need to add a third thing in here, which is essentially multiply. Increment, decrement, multiply. Right, so it's not a Boolean anymore. Right, but how do we decide whether it's going to be increment or decrement? Right, so increment is taken from, yeah, it's a process arithmetic command, process, and it's one. Okay, so essentially we want to have something like this. So if we have something decrement, where is the decrement? Right, do they have, yeah, so there is a decr command, but I can't really see that shit in here at all. It is not even processed anywhere in here. So decr, oh, here it is. Yeah, there we go. So essentially it's the same thing. So here's the increment command, we process arithmetic command, and decrement command will also process arithmetic command. But in case of increment, this thing is set to 1 and this thing is set to 0. Okay, so decrement. Gotcha, hyper. I know. Decrement. Like, how do you pronounce this thing? Translate google.com. I don't really know. Decrement.
Decrement.
Decrement. Okay. I hope I did it. I hope I nailed it. So in essentially, chat, essentially what we need to do, we just need to add 2 in here. Right. It would be kind of nice to now transform this entire thing into enumeration instead of a Boolean, right? So instead of the Boolean in here, it would be nice to have an enumeration, right? But I'm not quite sure how easy it is to do. Right, so in how many places do we even use process arithmetic command? Right, is there only 3 places where we use all of that? Right, so here are all of the 3 places that we just added and the definition. Okay, so this is actually very straightforward. Right, so there's only 3 places where we use all of that. So that means we can just like safely change this to integer, and we know exactly what's going to happen in here. So, okay, so the next thing we need to do add delta, which means that it would be kind of nice to rename this entire variable, this entire function to something else, right? But if we are in a pinch, maybe it doesn't really matter that much. Surprisingly, increment in here became integer, right? It became integer, even though increment in here originally was Boolean, right? So originally it was Boolean. So here we have that. So then we do increment, call it like that. So we're now passing, so the increment, it's kind of weird. Wait, do I understand it correctly? Wait, so I already made modifications. So, and I don't know what was the original thing, but it feels like they basically flip-flop between Boolean and integer, so you have to be super careful like with this kind of stuff. Right, so here we want to actually use this as an integer, and if we take a look at the incr, right, if we take a look at the incr, so this is basically what is going on in here. If we increment this thing, we just add the value, and then we have memcached command incr. And then if we have that stuff in here, we have that. Okay, so we can change this to a switch case, right? So we can do switch case. And there's two places actually. So they also, yeah, they also keep track of some sort of hits and stuff like that. So I'm not sure if we care about that, but anyway, in case of 1, right, so this is basically increment, right, so this is basically increment. Right, so I can move that stuff in here. Then in case of 0, this is increment, right. So this is going to be the break. So, and let me move that stuff in here. So this is a switch case. And in case of 2, this is multiplication. But that raises Emacs, freaking Emacs. Shut the fuck up, Emacs. I'm sorry. So what we do, we have to just do value multiplied by delta. Delta. And also we have this thing, and I have no idea what the fuck it is. Right, so we can try to introduce mult, but what the fuck is this thing? So I'm gonna go to here, and it does nothing. Wait a freaking second. I think I know what the fuck it is. Wait. So let me... It's inside of the trace.h. Okay, I think I know what it is. Essentially, you can redefine these macros and insert some code on each individual increment. Right, you can insert some additional codes, probably for login purposes or something like that, maybe for debugging purposes. I guess that's what it is? What do you guys think? Is that what it is? I think that's what it is. Do we really care about that? Do we really care? We can add that thing, right, but I don't know. I can put a to-do in here. Right, I can put a to-do in here as saying add support for tracing a mult command, right, because we were not set to implement like tracing, right? We were set to implement a command that just does that. So it's kind of outside of the scope of what we're doing right now. So I'm going to just like omit that. Okay. Also, we have some sort of a statistics, right? So there is an increment and decrement hits. So we can take a look at that. So this is a slab stats. We can also omit that. I mean, who said we have to support that? Who said we have to support that? I can do to do add support add slab stats support for mult command, and I have no idea what is a slab stat. I have no idea, right? So, but do I really have to know all of that? Do I really have to know? I'm not sure. And by the way, so here, since we're like looking into incr, I think if we are doing multiplication, it's going to increment incr hits. And this is not something that we probably want to do. So I want to transform this entire stuff to something like case 0. And we know that case 0 is basically this thing. So we're going to do a break. Then in case of 1, it's incr hits. And case 2 is basically something else. God damn it, Emacs. Fuck you, Emacs. Fuck you, Leatherman. Alright, so, and we also do mutex lock, right? So this is basically behind the mutex and stuff like that. So we need to check whether we use incr variable somewhere else, because maybe... No, we don't. I don't think we do. Right, so these were only 2 places where we actually use this kind of stuff. Right, so here we actually perform the operations and also some sort of a tracing, and also we collect statistics. So the reason why I don't want to go into the statistics right away is because I'm not sure if I have to do additional things. Right, for instance, maybe these variables, they have to be registered somewhere before you can use them as like for statistics. You know what I'm talking about? Right, maybe somewhere in the main function there is initialize statistic variables that registers the pointers to that variable in some sort of a table for some sort of predicate generation or something. I don't fucking know. Right. So I feel like just slapping like additional field in here and incrementing it and calling it a day is not gonna cut it, because those fields are probably used somewhere, and that somewhere probably requires some sort of a registration or something like that, because this is how it usually goes. So it can derail the whole thing dramatically. So what I would like to do first, I would like to just implement the feature as it is and make sure that it works exactly as you know, we have in technical requirement, and then we can spend some time looking how exactly these variables are used and try to, you know, extend this code to do the same for mult, right? And in case of the memcached command mult, maybe this kind of stuff has to be registered somewhere in a build system, right? Because obviously it's for some sort of a tracing. So that means the build system might be involved in here. It might be involved in here, or it might be not. We don't really know. So as you can see, there is a lot of uncertainty, right? And none of that uncertainty actually gets us closer to a feature implemented. So we can spend time making sure that all of these things works, but they're not super required for the feature to just work. You know what I'm talking about? So it's better to just get the feature working, and then to look into all of this mechanism and to look into all of these things. And I still have no idea what they're used for, right? So it's just something. It's just something there that it's used for something, right? It has nothing to do with the original feature. Anyways, enough talking, right? So let's actually see if it's going to work or not. We probably, let me actually see if we use that correctly. Okay, so that seems to be okay. So increment is 1, multiplication is 2, and decrement is 0. So let's try to rebuild this entire thing. Right, let's try to rebuild this entire thing. And so it doesn't build. Let's go to the compilation errors. Yay! So conflicting. Okay, so I modified the signature of this function, and it's now conflicting with the original signature. So I need to change it to integer. Thank you so much, compiler, for helping me with that. And that actually reminds me that I want to go through the entire call stack one more time. I want to go through the entire call stack one more time and make sure that nowhere in the call stack there is a conversion between integer and boolean and stuff like that, because I feel like it could be important. I feel like it could be important. So in a arithmetic command, inc is an integer. Okay, so where do we pass an inc? We pass that inc. Ooh, that is dangerous. I think I missed something in here. That is dangerous, right? So we'll probably have to extend this place as well. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. So in add delta, inc is an integer. Okay, so how else do we use inc? So we just pass it to do add delta. Within this thing, inc is an integer, right? And within this thing, everything's fine. Okay, so let's actually go back. And as you can see in here, if the delta item not found, we still have to update these statistics. Why is it dangerous? Somebody asks in here. This is because we're going to increment incr misses in case of multiplication, right? Because what they do in here, they use incr as a boolean, but it's not a boolean anymore, it's enumeration. So it only has to do incr misses when it's actually increment, right? And in case of the mult, it's probably need to have its separate statistics, right? So we need to have its separate statistics. So what we have to do, we have to transform this entire thing into a switch case, right? So we have to transform it into a switch case. So this one has to be case 1, right? So this is a break. This is, excuse me, why did it remove everything? This is case 0, right? So this is case 0. And for the case 2, there is nothing yet in here. Add support for mult, right? So there is at least 2 places. There is at least 2 places where all of that is happening. Okay, so let me go and just do that. So let's rebuild everything. Yesu, and let's start memcached. Memcached. Very funny. So let's just add, you know, the usual age, right? So the age is going to be this. I said the age. I said that the age is going to be 37, so it got stored. We can try to get age Right, so we can, it's 37. We can try to increment the age by 1, right, so we can try to increment by 1, it's 38. And now the moment of truth, the moment of truth, can I multiply it by 10? First try, motherfucker, first try. Am I hired? Am I hired? I don't freaking know, but that was easy actually, right? But basically, what it does, it demonstrates like basic skill of navigating a new unfamiliar code, right? So, and essentially, this is basically what they demonstrated to you. Right, so the first thing you need to do, you need to find the location where the commands are sort of dispatched and handled. You can do that by searching the name of the command as the string literal, right? Once you found that, you need some sort of a easy mechanism to navigate between the call stacks, right? So essentially here I use C tags and I can go inside of the function, right? See what are the other functions that are called in here, and I can just basically navigate the labyrinth of function calls until I find a place and find sort of like a good extension point, right? And as you can see, it's a really good example, right? Because you have to modify like a semantic of an argument through the entire call stack, right? Because before that, the semantic of the argument was basically a boolean, a flag, true or false. Is that increment or is that decrement? The easiest thing to do in here is to turn it into enumeration of 3 things. And by turning that into enumeration of 3 things, you can actually extend it even more. Maybe in the future, you can add division, right? So maybe other mathematical operations, and all of these mathematical operations will be values in the enumeration, and it will be kind of cool to actually create an enumeration, right? So maybe like arith, arith operation, and it's going to be like 0, 1, 2, and all these things are going to be increment, decrement, and stuff like that, right? But the easiest thing to do in here is just to use integer and maybe even implement it like further. So yeah, I really like this kind of sort of like a coding interview questions, right? Because they're very, very close to what we actually do. But unfortunately, these kind of questions are really difficult to find in the wild, right? They're very difficult to find in the wild because there's not that many of them, right? So it would be nice to maybe explore all of that even further, but I ran out of tea. Chat. I ran out of tea. So I think we'll need to make a small break. I'm gonna make a cup of tea. And after the break, we can basically try to explore what are these tracing things. So we already finished the challenge, by the way. It would be kind of nice to explore what are these slab stats and maybe like extend the slab stats and maybe see what they're used for and stuff like that. All right, so that will be interesting. So let's actually do that after a small break. All right, so let's try to finish this challenge, right? So let's try to finish this challenge. One of the things we need to learn is what the hell are those slab stats, right? What the hell are those slab stats? I'm really curious what they are. So we have some definitions in here, right? So here they are. So this is a thread stats. And I want a number of slab classes. Yeah, this is rather interesting. So this is a number of slab classes, but I suppose we don't really have to extend them. So we just have that. I'm interested in how many places we use them. So we do definitely write into them, but where do we read from them, right? So that's what I'm interested in. So let's just go ahead and search for potential reads of this variable. All right. So here we write into it, and here's where we read from it. So we just increment. That's very interesting. So we're transfer. And okay, so there you go. We found a very interesting place. Right. So essentially, if I just edit mult hits, I wouldn't know that I will have to extend this place as well. Right, so here we're obviously doing some sort of a copying, thread local stats aggregate. Right, so if you're gonna add a new stat in here, you should also extend the code that aggregates the stats. So this is precisely why I didn't want to do that, because I knew that you don't increment stats just for nothing. You also do something with them, right? And figuring out like how you have to do, how you have to deal with the stats actually derails you from the main feature. It's better to postpone that, precisely because of this kind of stuff, right? So where else do we use all of that? So there is this aggregate code. So maybe I'm gonna do something like slab stats, or maybe I'm gonna do something like slab, right? So essentially I'm gonna mark places where I probably have to do some extensions with add slab, so I can quickly find them in the future. So here's another thing. For example, cleaning up things. And this is a really bad way of cleaning up things, in my opinion. You could have just did memset, and you would never have to actually extend this place ever again, right? So, but you will have to extend it like this, right? So, but I mean, anyway, so this is another place where we probably have to do slab, right? I still have no idea what the fuck is slab, right? So just saying. So this is the second place, but I mean, it's under the same thing. So here is the Perl code. We don't really care. And what do we have in here? So append stat, so this is a decrement. So what is this function? Server, server stats. So where is it called? Return server specific stats only. So can I even print that? So can I even print that? That's very interesting, but I definitely need to put a slab in here, right? So slab in here. But I'm really curious. Can I find the places where it is used? Not really. So probably have to then do something else. So this is memcached. So this is where we increment these things. So there's some docs. So there's documentation. So general purpose statistics. Upon receiving the stats command. Okay, so there is apparently a stats command that give you the stats, right? So we can do stat name, and the server will return you stats. Okay, that's cool. That's actually very useful, actually. That is very useful. I wonder if I can just get all of the stats, right? So, but I need to first finish with all of this stuff. So this is the definition. So this is definitely where I'll have to do slab. That's for sure. So isn't that do slab stats? So okay, so there's a lot of duplicate code, so I also have to do it in here as well. So slab. And the last thing. Oh, okay, so it's the same thing. All right, so that's cool. I suppose I can just now search for slab. And here are all of the places where I have to do modifications to add a new sort of statistics, right? So one of the things I would like to do, I'd like to run memcached one more time and connect to this entire thing and do stats, right? And here are all of the stats. Here they are, right? So increment, right? Increment hits, increment misses, and stuff like that. And yeah, so you need to actually. We need to actually have two of these things, right? For misses and hits, right? For misses and hits. So this is quite important, right? So that's actually kind of cool. So somebody in the chat asks, what's the question? Check out the today command. It's basically the old blog post about extending memcached. So somebody also asks, when can incr miss? I suppose when you're trying to increment a name that doesn't exist, right? So we can go to memcached. So, and we have, here we have hits, right? So here we have hits. But process arithmetic command. So essentially when we're processing the arithmetic command, when delta item not found, because how do you do that? You do increment name, right? So if such name does not exist, it generates delta item not found, or data item like something not found, and it will basically increment the misses of the increment or decrement, right? So that's what's going to happen. But I mean, delta not found. They're not talking about the name. They're talking about specifically delta. So that means you may store delta somewhere else. So this is also a slab that we'll have to increment in here. All right. So can we just kill it? Can I do? I don't remember. So there was a. I probably can quit. Yeah, I can just quit. So it also kills the entire. I think it didn't really kill it. Oh, quit doesn't kill the memcached. It just quits the current connection. Okay, so that's cool. That's cool. That's cool. So somebody also asks, what's the purpose of this code? I have no idea. Right. Personally, if I were developing an application, I wouldn't need it. But I think this is needed for PHP programs to store their state somewhere. I think that's the purpose of this code, right? So that's the purpose of memcached, I suppose. Okay. So let me just go ahead and go through all of these places and add the statistics. Right. So so this is basically a slab. This is basically slab, and we can just do grep slab, and this is in how many places we have to do modifications to add the statistics, which is not a great sign from the quality of the code point of view, in my opinion, right? So, so I usually don't like to talk about maintainability, right? Because maintainability is it has two ends, right? So the maintainability of the code also greatly depends on the ability of the person to maintain. The same with readability. Right, so the problem with maintainability and readability is that people quite often look at them in a very one-sided way. They always assume that it's only responsibility of the code to be readable and maintainable, and never responsibility of the programmer to be experienced enough to read and maintain. There are two ends to this quality. It's how really code is readable and maintainable, and how skillful is the programmer. That's why I don't really like to talk about this kind of stuff, right? Because it's a sort of like a double-edged thing. And when you really start to talk about it, people really get uncomfortable because that implies that they need to get good, and nobody likes to be told that they need to get good, right? So, but in this particular case, if you have a thing, if you have a list of things, and that list need to be extended, like for example, the kinds of statistics. Generally, I personally recommend to minimize the amount of places where you need to make modifications. Right. For example, here I need to add a new statistics. Look at how many places I need to make modifications just to add a new statistics. Right. Personally, I think the code is more maintainable if the amount of places where you need to make modifications just to add a new thing is brought to minimum. You know what I'm talking about? Right, so it would be nice if it was just like 1 or 2 places, but here we have 7 places. It's not that bad, right? But it's not great either, right? So we can work with that, but for me personally, you see how many things I had to do. I had to do greps and also make sure that I captured everything correctly, and it's really easy to make a mistake and stuff like that. It's just like, yeah. Wouldn't be a good interview question if this code was maintainable. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, let's go ahead and do that. So what do we need to do? All right. So incr, misses incr stuff, blah blah blah. Thread local stats aggregate incr. So this is only misses, but here we only have hits. So maybe I'm gonna do just mult misses. And where is another inc? Here we're gonna do inc mult. All right, so we just added these two things, and that is basically it. So I can remove the slub, but I'm not going to remove it, right? So because I still want to have this kind of stuff. Okay. Right, so this is mult, increment, mult. Okay, next place. Increment misses, increment hits. Okay, so that means we actually talking about both of these things in here, and I can basically replace incr with mult. All right, incr with mult, and that's basically it. Do we refer to incr anywhere up there? I don't think so. Everything's fine. Okay. So in here, what we want to do, we just want to do thread stats mult misses plus plus. There we go. So, and we can just do that. What else do we have in here? We want to do a similar thing. I might as well just do something like that. And mult slaps. Yeah, so that's fine. So, and here we have to add the hits. But where do we store the misses? Where do we store the misses? This is sus, not gonna lie. So here, where is the ink? Mult. Okay, so that's it, but I don't remember the misses. So we probably wanna search for them. Right, so incr misses. So here they are. And I never actually put a slab in there. All right, so let's put slab somewhere there. So this is slab. So this is the misses, and this is like this. Thread stats. Okay, so I think we should try to now build this entire thing and see if it's going to build. Hopefully. Hopefully it is going to build. First try, I suppose. First try. We can now try to run the memcached and connect to this entire thing and do stats. And do we have multiplication stats? There we go. So we have mult misses, mult hits. So we can probably now try to add the age, not edge. Let's do it like that. So boom. And now what I can do, I can, well, I mean, I have to set 37. So this is stored, and I can try to increment this entire thing. Let's take a look at the stats. Now, do we have increment hits? Right, so we do have increments hits in here, so they are in fact incremented. So, and the next thing we can try to do is try to multiply this entire stuff and see if that modifies the stats. So this is the stats, and mult. There we go, multiply hits is 1. There we go. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. So we also extended the stats. Right, so and now you can see exactly why I postponed working on the stats, because we had 7, actually 8, so we had to add additional thing. You need to modify 8 places to add the stats, right? And it still has nothing to do with the feature, right? So because the task was to add a feature, it was nothing about the stats. So that's why I just postponed that, because stats could be actually more difficult, right? So you have to look into more places and stuff like that. But again, this is also not enough, because there was something about the tracing, right? Remember? So there was some additional macros that allow you to trace the command. What's up with that? I have no idea what's up with that, right? So we'll need to figure it out. So let's go ahead and try to figure it out. So let me see. So there's a I think process arithmetic command. So, and where do we try to do that? So if we go into the increment, right, then add delta. And by the way, functions like add delta should probably be renamed to something else, because they can they can do more things than just add and subtract. They can also multiply, so this thing does not really reflect the intention of this function. Right, so some sort of renaming would be required, but I mean, this is a real source code. In a real production source code, you have functions like that do different things that are not declared in the name of the function. It is normal, right? So because nobody got time to actually properly name functions, right? So that's why you have to look at the implementations. So that's kind of normal. So if you're about to graduate from the university and go into the industry, that's the kind of shit you have to be dealing with. Like, unironically. That's why I think this particular question is so great for software interviews, for engineering interviews, because they show you the actual kind of shit that you will have to deal with. Functions that do one thing, but named completely differently. So yeah, that's what you have to do. And of course, renaming a function could be painful, right? Because it's used in other places, so you have to make sure that you rename everything correctly. And for instance, here, I'm kind of afraid to do the renaming because maybe we also have to modify the test. We didn't even run the tests, by the way. Maybe we also have to extend the tests. So, yeah. Alrighty. So, okay, so this is some sort of a tracing. What can we do in here? So let's actually try to find all of the places where we, use this function. And there's not that many of them, honestly. There's not that many of them. So, yeah. If enabled, I really don't know, because if it had something to do with the build stuff, I would expect it to at least be used somewhere. I suppose the way you use this function, you literally put something in here yourself, right? In the trace.h, you put something yourself in here, like increment, right, s, maybe s, something like this, and just arg0, arg1, arg2, arg3, something like this, right? Because if we take a look at the memcached C, right, so we have items. I'm not even sure, like, it's kind of difficult to see what are the types of the argument 0, argument 1, argument 2, argument 3, so it will greatly depend, right? So what kind of stuff we have to put in here. So I think this is how you're supposed to use that, right? So, and it's needed primarily for the debugging purposes, right? Just to trace different kind of commands, right? And I suppose the easiest thing to do in here would be to simply add another one, like so. When in doubt, just look at the surrounding code and repeat what you see, right? So in my case, I think I would just do something like that, right? And also enabled, I don't know where it is used. Is it ever used anywhere? Right. Is it ever used? It's literally not used anywhere. Right. So as you can see, we have it in tags, but the tags is the function, is the file that I created. So the only mention of memcached command incr enabled is in here, which may also mean that you can still refer to this kind of name through maybe token concatenation in a preprocessor. Maybe there is some sort of preprocessor macro that constructs this name somehow, and all of that is handled in a particular way. I don't really know. So I don't really know. So maybe we can try to search for just memcached command, just to see. Nah, I think it's literally that. I don't want to say useless, but it's as simple as that. It's just additional things that you manually put some stuff in there and it just like traces. I guess. It's a mystery for me. This is an enigma. Like, I don't really know what people use this stuff for. Like, it's just like, it's so unclear to me. If with the statistics, it was relatively clear. We even discovered that there is a stats command and this is how you extend statistics. Okay, everything is clear in here. With this thing, I'm not really sure what's up with that. I kind of understand that it's for tracing, but I don't know. So kind of difficult to figure out the intention. But I mean, I can just always do that. So There we go. I extended this entire thing. We can try to rebuild this entire stuff. And there you go. So we can rebuild everything. While it's building, we may want to take a look at the tests. And as far as I can see, there are some tests for increment decrement, right? So there are some tests for increment decrement, and this is something that we can try to extend. Yeah, this is something that we can try to extend, and it seems like it's very easy to extend. The only question I have is, how do we run those tests? So is there any way we can run them? So everything is built, so can I just do make tests? Okay, apparently I can. Okay, it's as simple as that. So incr, okay, so there's a binary incr, so maybe there's more. Should be one auto binary or ASCII. All right, so we're testing things. Okay, so here are the tests in, that's a lot of different tests, but thousands of tests, holy shit. We're not lagging, right? So hopefully we're not lagging. Yeah, everything's fine. So let's see, binary .t. So I suppose they're kind of automatically generated if there's like thousands of them. Dubious tests returned 255. Okay. I don't know what's up with that. Maybe it's after our modifications. But yeah. Dubious tests returned. All subtests passed. This is such a funny message. Looks like you planned this amount of tests, but actually run this. Oh, so I remember in Perl testing frameworks, you kind of declare upfront how many tests you want to run, and then you run test, and if there is a discrepancy, it will tell you. I don't really know why it is kind of necessary, but I kind of vaguely remember Perl being like that. Right. I kind of vaguely remember. So this thing is pretty well tested. I wonder if there is a way to run a specific test, though. That would have been nice. Okay, so there's a lot of shit failed. What exactly failed in here? Stats. Ooh, yeah. Stats have failed. Do you guys know why stats have failed? Do you guys know why? Because we modified the stats. Now we have more stats than there was before. So that's actually kind of funny, right? We can look into them, right? So that was a good idea to look into all of that. I'm not sure about the binary t, right? So failed 24. Maybe something failed in here also because of the stats thing. But we definitely want to modify the stats. I think we do. Yeah. Output looks like this. Yeah, it doesn't look like that anymore. It definitely doesn't look like that anymore. How can we even do that? Is stats? Yeah, we have to actually, you know, increment and everything. I wonder if there is like any way to just capture the current way of doing things. Increment misses. So there is a stats. Can I just run the t stats t? No, I don't think I can. Like it requires like rerunning everything. Yeah, it wants to rerun everything, unfortunately. It will take too much time. It will take too much time to actually modify all of this thing. Right, but I'm gonna leave it as a note, essentially. Leave it as a note, right? So upon modifying the stats, we probably also want to modify this test so it passes. Probably want to look into the binary t and see what's up with that. I wonder if it has something to do with stats. Yeah, so we also look into the stats. Since we added some stats in here, this you know, this thing probably broke. And on top of that, we would probably want to modify inc incr decr test to add support for multiplication as well, right? But working with that and extending all of that is probably like a separate work on its own, right? I don't know if it is required for this challenge to be completed, but yeah. So I guess that's basically everything that I as a software engineer would do to implement this feature, right? So implement the feature. First of all, implement the feature. Then update the stats, because since you edit a new command, you need to have the stats for that command, because that's how memcached apparently worked. I didn't know that, by the way. Right, I didn't know that. I discovered that through working with the code. And since it has the tests, and tests are really important in an actual commercial software, right? So you want to also fix all of them, right? You want to fix all of them. Personally, if we're talking about the maintainability of the code, if you probably want to have a way to sort of capture the current behavior and say that this is the current behavior now, right? Essentially, I modify the stats, right? I edit a new stats, and now I have to go manually, and I have to go to the file where we check the stats and manually modify it. This is something really inconvenient. What I personally like to do in my project is have some sort of ability to capture the current behavior and claim that that's the right behavior now, so I don't have to do things manually, right? So for instance, I edit a new statistics, now the test breaks, but then I say, okay, but the current behavior is the correct one. Just take the output of the program and say that this is the new behavior and test against that from now on. That way I don't have to even modify anything. I can say just record the new behavior and that's the new one. And that's something that I used, I think, in Porth, right? So Porth has like different tests and stuff like that, and there is an ability to just say, okay, record the new behavior and that's the new behavior now. I don't have to modify anything, right? So that's convenient, and that saves a lot of time, right? So you don't have to modify files manually and everything. You know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about? I guess I'm gonna finish it here, right? So what do you guys think? Did I pass the interview? Did I pass the interview? I didn't update the tests, but I mean, I feel like it's gonna take too much time on the stream, right? Because I couldn't figure out the way to just run a single test, and without that, I don't want to wait through all of the tests and stuff like that. It's just like, yeah. So people say that I'm hired. People say that I'm hired, right? But only one person would hire me. Anyone else would hire me? I don't know. Too much talk, too less code. But I feel like this is what you want to do on a coding interview anyway, right? Because what you want to do, you want to tell the interviewer, you want to let the interviewer know what is going on in your head, because that's what's important for the interviewer. Not what you're actually doing, but the way you approach the problem. And the only way you can actually show the interviewer how you approach the problem is talk a lot while coding. Ideally, you want to do that kind of simultaneously, like I do on the streams. Can you show the git diff? I missed a lot of the stream. I technically can't, but I can try to do a diff between the folders. Right, so essentially, okay, let's go ahead and just try to do that. So this is patched. So this is a patch thing. I can't do git diff because I downloaded the tarball, right? I downloaded the tarball. So what I probably want to do, I want to do diff, a universal one between the memcached and the memcached patched, and hope that it, okay, so it actually did something. All right, so that's basically the diff. There is a lot of binary stuff, right? There is a lot of binary stuff. Only in So is there any way to filter out only ifs, if you know what I'm talking about? Right, we can always save sort of like a patch. Maybe I can do, by the way, what I can do is I can clean. Right, so I can try to do clean, make clean. There we go. So that would make it a little bit better. Right, yeah. So there's still some stuff in here like configuration and everything, but apart from that, so patch diff. So let's go here. So okay, so this is, here we added a little bit of statistics. So then we modified process arithmetic command from Boolean to integer, right? So that's quite important because Boolean was simply increment or decrement, but now we can have multiplication. So that's what we did. So here I transformed, it's kind of difficult to see because of this highlighting, but what I did, I transformed if into switch case, because again, we support more operations than 2, so it's a switch case, essentially. Again, Boolean to integer, and if switch case transformation, yeah, so additional command. So this is probably the most important one, right? This is where we extended the dispatch between the commands depending on the actual name of the command. Right, and the rest of the stuff in here is additional statistics, just additional statistics. So yeah, that's basically the patch. So yeah, that's what I would, this is how I would approach the problem. All right, now guys, that's it for today. Thanks everyone who's watching me right now. I really appreciate that. Unfortunately, I kind of finished the challenge in 40 minutes, technically, right? So of course I tried to extend the challenge and add stats and stuff like that, but it was 40 minutes, right? So, and I was promised 3 hours of content. I barely managed to have 2 hours of content, and the blog post promised 3 hours of content. Literally scammed. Where is my 3 hours of content? I demand a refund. I'm joking, by the way. Great article. Thank you. Thank you so much, whoever wrote that article. I really appreciate it. This is a really awesome challenge, and I really recommend that challenge to anyone who wants to prepare for the coding interviews. But obviously, don't watch the stream. But I mean, if you're listening to me right now, you probably already watched the stream, so everything is spoiled. But anyway. All right, that's it for today. Thanks everyone, and I see you all on the next recreational programming session with Azuzian. Love you all. Mwah.